Hi there, and welcome back to Anchor Point, the podcast from Freedom's Advocate. I'm your host, Randy Crosson. Thanks for joining me again. Recently, Liberal MP Marc Miller, who chairs the House Justice Committee, sparked national controversy after suggesting that certain Bible passages should not be used as legal defense in cases of alleged hate speech or public incitement. In his comments, Miller pointed to verses from Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Romans, describing them as clearly hateful and arguing that they have no place as justification for statements made in the public square. It's a moment that's drawn sharp criticism across the country because for many Canadians, the idea that passages from the Bible could be treated as hate literature feels like a line's being crossed. What began as a discussion about modernizing hate crime law has turned into something much larger, a debate over the role of faith, scripture, and free expression in Canadian public life. Under current law, Canada's criminal code includes a specific safeguard. Section 319 allows a person accused of promoting hatred to claim a defense if their statement was made in good faith, in a religious context, and based on religious text. This clause recognizes that quoting or discussing scripture, however controversial its verses might be, is part of a legitimate religious expression, not criminal incitement. Marc Miller's comments seem to challenge that protection by questioning whether biblical citation should remain a valid defense. Ottawa risks sending a message that public expressions of Christian faith are something to be monitored, managed, or even censored. And that's where the concern runs deep. For most Canadians, freedom of religion and freedom of speech are not partisan talking points. They're foundational rights, core to who we are as a democratic and diverse nation. If a government begins to decide which parts of sacred texts are acceptable to quote and which beliefs can be publicly defended, then freedom itself starts to erode. Let's be clear, no one is calling for ancient punishments to be enforced. No pastor or believer wants to return to the laws of Leviticus. But the Bible, like all sacred texts, contains history, theology, and moral teachings that believers have the right to read, discuss, and share without fear of prosecution. When a government official labels parts of scriptures hateful, it risks branding entire faith traditions as suspect. It also shows a complete lack of understanding of religion and its application to the individual. Where adherents to a religion are required to carry out hatred and violence, our criminal system is in place to deal with those instances. We've seen a growing pattern, whether it's the cancellation of worship events for being too religious, or policy decisions that favor certain ideologies while treating Christian conviction as dangerous. There's a perception that faith is welcome in Canada so long as it stays silent in public. That double standard undermines genuine pluralism and shows a complete disregard for the charter right of freedom of religion. This isn't just about Christianity either. Once the state claims the authority to censor religious expression, it sets a precedent that could affect all faiths. Today it's Leviticus, tomorrow it could be the Quran, the Torah, or any text that challenges prevailing political narratives. Freedom cannot survive when truth must first be government approved. The question we need to ask is simple. Do we still believe that Canadians can think, speak, and worship freely? Because freedom of religion and freedom of speech rise or fall together. If one is weakened, the other soon follows. So what can we do? First, stay informed. Understand what's actually being proposed and how laws like Bill C-9 could change the landscape for faith and free expression. Second, speak respectfully but firmly in defense of those freedoms at your church, in your community, and with your elected representatives. Consider how effective grassroots movements have been over the past 2 decades. If you don't like what you've heard from a government official, write that MP or MLA, as well as your own government representative. Or better yet, make an appointment and express your thoughts in person. If you have concerns about something happening in your area, contact Freedom's Advocate. We can help. Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms doesn't just protect popular ideas, it protects the right to speak truthfully, even when it's unpopular. At the heart of this issue is a timeless question. Who decides what can be said about faith, morality, and human nature? In a free country, that authority belongs not to politicians, but to the conscience of every individual. You've been watching Anchor Point, the podcast from Freedom's Advocate. I'm Randy Crosson. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.